Welcome to the Dowden Podcast. I'm your host, the official CRG, and today we are going to talk about the history of chemical warfare and why more people should be aware of this topic, not only for their own knowledge, but their own safety. But before we get started, make sure to leave a like and follow down below. That way you don't miss any weekly episodes and posts. You can find this video strictly on YouTube, but the audio everywhere else. Now, chemical warfare has always and will be a touchy subject to cover no matter what, but it's also been a main factor in countless wars and death, and therefore there should be no reason why this topic should be suppressed or dismissed. But with that said, chemical warfare has been around for hundreds of years, even dating back to 600 BCE. But it wasn't until World War I when it was at its absolute worst, having both sides use poisonous gas to inflict agonizing pain and ultimately resulting in certain death. And even if that wasn't enough, chemical warfare was still being used after World War I, having it be the cause for over 1 million deaths globally. But as a result of the public outrage, the Geneva Protocol was then formed in 1925, which prohibited the use of chemical weapons in warfare overall. But that all soon changed when the protocol had a lot of significant shortcomings. For example, the protocol did not prohibit the development, production, and stockpiling of chemical weapons. Also, another problem the protocol had was that many states that ratified the protocol reserved the right to use prohibited weapons against states that were not party to the protocol, or as retaliation if chemical weapons were used against them. So, because the protocol didn't cover those two major topics, poisonous gases were then used again in World War II all throughout Nazi concentration camps. Because they could save and develop them, they just couldn't use them on the battlefield. And even after that, through the Cold War, chemical warfare saw a significant development, manufacture, and stockpiling of even more chemical weapons, causing more tension between countries. But finally, in 1993, the Chemical Weapons Convention passed a bill that all use of chemical weapons in war is prohibited, as is all development, production, and stockpiling of such weapons, causing all countries to destroy what they once had, be made, or being saved. So, since then, chemical weapons have been put to a halt, having most countries listen, but there are a few who still work on them. And this is all public knowledge. So me saying this stuff isn't a problem because it is all public knowledge. And you can go and look it up for yourself. You know, you'll go down into a little rabbit hole of drones that can drop things or newly developed viruses and AI. And it's honestly terrifying because countries now have the ability to not only take out a whole section of people, but certain types of people. And that's the scariest part. Because if you want a section of people gone with type A blood type, you can now do that. But nobody really knows about this. Nobody has knowledge on it until it were to happen. So that's another reason why we talk about a lot of these topics today, like we are with this one. But with that said, today's quote is by H.G. Wells. He once said, "If we don't end war, war will end us." I appreciate you tuning in. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And this is the Dowden Podcast.